Printers have long been the way for you to take your digital creations and transfer them into the real world. Over the years, Nintendo has been on and off the bandwagon of trying to bring printing-based gimmicks to their consumers. No, I will not be talking about the Game Boy printer today. As a matter of fact, I've kind of already talked about that in another video. Regardless, some things are better left in the trash where they belong. Instead, I'm going to be focusing on some Windows and DOS-based printing software that was licensed by Nintendo back in the 1990s. The first on our list will be Super Mario Bros. Print World, published by High-Tech Expressions in 1991. If you haven't heard of High-Tech Expressions, they're very similar to the infamous publisher LJN. They somehow acquired the rights to publish games from very famous franchises, and most of them were absolutely awful. And as a byproduct of that, both of the companies bottomed out in the mid to late 90s and have lived on in infamy ever since then. As I mentioned, this is a DOS-compatible program, and it comes included with two 5¼ and one 3½-inch floppy diskettes. And if you remember from my Lego Loco video, I've had a lot of trouble with retro technology. Well, you can say no more, because I finally have a retro computer back in my possession. No, if only it was so easy. While all the hardware is era accurate, and I can run these products just fine, getting them to go to my capture card is where I hit a major stumbling block. So to get my Elgato HD60 Pro running with my retro computer, I had to get an HDMI to VGA adapter. So I thought that should be fine and it should work as is. Wrong. The software that Elgato provided would not support the resolution that this computer was wanting to output in, and unfortunately I could not change it to something that I wanted to output in at all. And eventually that led me down to the road to where I finally got it to work after having to do a spaghetti of converter boxes and HDMI cables and a composite cable and this. And presto, we got it running. Yeah, it's heavily artifacted and it's not good. A lot of text looks very blurry. It's a little hard to read on a lot of things, but it doesn't matter to me at this point. We've got it running natively and we're good to go. And this is it. It's about as really simple as it gets. I mean, there's no real fancy GUI or anything. It's just, this is your menu. You have a few options. Go make a card, go make some kind of printout, whatever. And since a lot of these graphics are drawn in the old school way, it takes a little bit for them to load in. So thankfully it comes with a quick reference guide that you can thumb through at your own leisure and make things a little easier for you to get quick ideas, as mentioned by on the back of the box. The possibilities are endless with Super Mario Bros. Print World. Signs, stationaries, cards, posters, and banners are only the beginning. You can print out puppets, bookmarks, masks, and a lot more for hours of creative fun. Super Mario Bros. Print World features Super Mario Bros. Characters and high-resolution graphics including Mario, Luigi, the Koopas, Mushroom, Princess, and many more. IBM 100 graphics, Commodore, Apple 60 graphics. 20 decorative borders to add excitement to your creations, 7 typefaces in 3 sizes, special effects including italics, boldface, and outline. I messed around with it quite a bit, and it seems like most of the power is in custom documents, but this software is far too primitive for me to really even bother digging into it, especially considering its limitations. I'm used to a modern world with all my Adobe Suite products like Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign and all that stuff, so this, it was a little bit of a nightmare trying to navigate around it, especially with the lag and all that and stuff. So I mostly stuck to templates for anything that I was going to mess around with for the duration of this review. And all of that work culminated into a pretty nice banner that I was able to take a look at. It was in grayscale. I couldn't get it to display in color for some reason. I'm not the best with this DOS technology, so forgive me if I'm overlooking something here. And since it's not able to print out in its current configuration, I really could only take a screenshot, and then I cleaned it up in Photoshop a little bit and then printed it out that way. Obviously, it's aged pretty rough. It's, for lack of better words, it's awful. There's something endearing about it, especially the fact that it's Mario-based printing software on a computer. Any of this crossover stuff I always found to be really fascinating in various ways. Now, I'm sure if I had an old compatible printer that could be hooked up to this Windows 98 machine, I would get a little bit more mileage out of it, but as it stands, I cannot print out anything, so it's literally just looking at a bunch of really outdated graphics. It's kind of cool though, because a lot of these character designs are frozen in the time of the Super Mario Bros. 3 era. A lot of the characters do not look the same as they do now. A textbook example would be Bowser, who looks more like his King Koopa form that you would see from that style, you know, like the cartoon and all the artwork and stuff of that. It looks nothing like the modern Bowser we've got. Now that, I can't really recommend going out to find this game, if you can at this point, because it was not an easy find for me. I only found this in a local store. I could not find any information online, eBay, or any of that stuff as far as sale prices, and it should also be noted this only had a United States release, so if you're international, I think you're out of luck in that. But like I said, it's not really worth your time, especially in today's world. It's just a collection piece, and it's going to be sitting on my shelf, and that's all it will do. And the next piece of this two-part review will be Pokémon Project Studio Red version. From what I understand, this one's a little bit more common. I found this one out in the wild a lot easier, but this particular copy I didn't spend any money on because it came as a loaner from my wonderful significant other and resident Pokemaniac. She's also a co-writer on my website if you want to go check out her articles, Helen. This piece of software came quite a bit later than our last one, so it's definitely got a bit of an update as far as stuff like the GUI goes. It was released in 1999 and published by The Learning Company. Unlike High-Tech Expressions, The Learning Company's fairly low-key. They do not have the notorious history that High-Tech Expressions did. As a matter of fact, they actually have a fairly interesting history. One of the co-founders of The Learning Company was Warren Robinette, the same developer who programmed Adventure. Other than that, they're nothing really special, so back onto the game itself. Now, Pokémon Project Studio actually is two separate pieces of software. There's Red version, which is the one we've got, and then there's Blue version, which we don't have. The point of this is it separates all 151, at the time, Pokémon into 81 per version. Now, in my opinion, Red by far has the best set. Now, I'd like to get Blue, obviously, for completion's sake, but as far as the roster goes, Red's the way to go. The software installed pretty well, had a couple hiccups here and there, but for the most part it ended up working out. It runs as intended, and actually one of the interesting things I found about it is that whenever you launch it, it turns your system's HUD, like your Windows desktop, is made to look red and yellow in the theme of this Pokemon style. It's kind of cool, it makes it look like a Pokedex. Once again, the bulk of this program's power is locked behind the idea of using your own custom framework rather than using templates. You can do a lot more than you could on the previous software. I mean, of course, that was DOS, this is Windows 98. But one of the big things I like about it, aside from the fact that it's a lot more user-friendly, is the fact there's a lot more templates that are ready-made and easier for you to use. If I was to find a comparable program that would be on its design style of like how you can place and locate objects, it's very similar to Microsoft PowerPoint. So if you're familiar with that, you can design stuff in this. Now, I've got to specifically highlight how much I love these templates. I am a nostalgia freak, so I love vintage art styles like 90s and 80s. I just love that gaudy art style that you can find in a lot of stuff like this. And it's had quite a bit of a revival through Vaporwave and Outrun and all those various other subcultures. But these templates, they capture that style pretty well, and it makes me think back to my childhood in the 90s. Overall, I think this is a much more worthwhile investment if you're going to try to get some vintage Nintendo PC printing software, especially considering that this is Windows 98, so it's semi-compatible with modern machines. I, as a matter of fact, went and installed it right on my computer, and it worked a lot easier than Lego Loco, aside from the fact that it turned OBS red, but hey. There was a couple issues here and there, but after bypassing all those problems, I managed to get something that worked reasonably well, and it still responded with the Wi-Fi printer that we have upstairs. Oh, well. I think that concludes my review into Nintendo printer software. It's been quite an adventure, and I would say very much an ordeal, because I think I'm gonna have to take a break from doing anything related to Windows 98 or any of that old vintage PC software stuff unless it's compatible with modern machines, because I don't know if I can you know, be hooking this up every time I want to do something with these machines, especially considering that I'm running out of vintage software that's actually interesting. Vintage software that's actually interesting to review. So instead, I'm going to go back to doing another console review for my next one, and I think that's going to be something along the lines of maybe, you know, some whatever. And yeah, so hopefully you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video.